Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know, first, China is weaponizing its 92% rare earth monopoly, creating a strategic chokehold on global tech and defense supply chains. We'll analyze why this knowledge embargo is a turning point in techno-nationalism and how it could cripple Western innovation cycles. Second, OpenAI's $4.50 ChatGPT Go plan is targeting emerging markets in a classic Silicon Valley land grab to secure the next billion users. In this episode, we'll break down this aggressive loss leader strategy and what it signals for the global AI competitive landscape. Third, ChatGPT chat logs have become key evidence in a $150 billion arson case, setting a major US legal precedent. So we'll discuss why your private AI conversations have zero legal privilege and what this means for user privacy and future criminal investigations. Fourth, a proposed $100,000 H-1B visa fee is splitting Silicon Valley, pitting Nvidia's CEO against leaders from Netflix and OpenAI. We'll analyze why this policy creates a talent moat for big tech and how it could affect the competitive dynamics of the US startup ecosystem. Fifth, Citi's major investment in stablecoin firm BVNK signals a Wall Street gold rush into the $9 trillion digital payments market. This discussion will reveal how new US regulations are fueling this race and what it means for the future of the global financial system. Let's start with a single statistic that might change your perspective on global supply chains. One country now controls 92% of the processing for a resource. Your phone, your car, and even advanced jet engines cannot function without. And this is critical because these aren't just any materials. We're talking about a group of 17 elements like neodymium and dysprosium that are the secret sauce in the most powerful magnets on Earth. These magnets are what make electric vehicle motors and wind turbines incredibly efficient, putting them at the very heart of the global green energy transition. China has just tightened its grip on rare earths, the critical elements behind nearly all modern technology. Beijing already dominated the market, but new rules have formalized a strategic chokehold. Foreign companies now need the Chinese government's direct approval to export products containing even small amounts of these materials. And the strategy goes even deeper than just controlling the supply. The regulations make it clear that export licenses are unlikely to be issued to arms manufacturers, a direct shot at the US defense industry and its supply chain. This all comes as a direct response to US tech restrictions. So the thing is, this isn't a simple trade dispute. It's a new era of what experts are calling techno-nationalism. We've seen the US use its dominance in semiconductors to block China's tech ambitions. Now, China is using its control over rare earths as a countermove. This weaponization of highly specialized supply chains is a fundamental shift in global trade, where national security is now tied directly to technological control. While the US blocks China from getting advanced chip-making equipment, Beijing is now blocking the world from its rare earth technology. The new rules prohibit the export of technology used for mining, processing, and even making magnets from rare earths without government permission. What's really at stake here isn't just the materials themselves, but something much more strategic, a knowledge embargo. By banning the export of the technology and the know-how to process these elements, China is aiming to protect its near-total monopoly for the long term. It's a strategic play to ensure no other country can easily build a competing supply chain. This has a massive impact on the US, which has its own rare earth mines, but critically lacks the processing facilities that China controls. So how do we get here? It's a story about offshoring and environmental costs. The US was once a leader in processing rare earths, but the process is incredibly dirty. For every ton of rare earth produced, you can generate up to 2,000 tons of toxic waste. Faced with strict environmental regulations and higher costs, the US and other Western nations essentially offshored this messy, expensive work to China, which was willing to do it cheaper, partly due to less stringent environmental rules. Rebuilding that capability now means facing enormous technical, economic, and environmental hurdles. A trade expert calls the move specifically timed ahead of meetings between Chinese and US leadership, targeting key vulnerabilities in American electronics and weapons manufacturing. The control is now nearly absolute, from mining and smelting to manufacturing the final magnets and even exporting the equipment used. to repair the production lines. Every single step of the rare earth supply chain is now under Beijing's direct authority. So what can be done? One potential countermove is something called urban mining, recycling these precious elements from our mountains of e-waste. But after all, while promising, it's not a silver bullet. Globally, we only properly collect and recycle about a quarter of all e-waste, and the technology to efficiently extract these tiny amounts of material from complex devices is still difficult and expensive, making it a challenge to scale up to meet national security needs. Speaking of global strategic plays, we're seeing another kind of resource grab happening in the world of artificial intelligence. OpenAI just made a move that could change the global AI race forever. While some users pay $20 a month and an elite few pay $200 a month for its services, the company is now rolling out a new plan for just $4.50. Now, this might sound new, but it's actually a classic tech industry playbook called the Next Billion Users Gambit. We saw Google do it with Android Go and Meta with Facebook Free Basics. The goal is to get your product into the hands of the fastest growing group of internet users on the planet, often in emerging markets, by making it incredibly affordable. This isn't for a watered down version of their tech. The budget-friendly plan, called ChatGPT Go, gives users access to the company's latest public model, GPT-4o, along with premium features like extended image generation and advanced data analysis. And while initial reports mention GPT-5, what's actually being offered is their latest public model, GPT-4o. This detail is significant because giving away access to your top-tier model in a budget plan signals a massive strategic shift. It suggests the performance gap between AI model versions is shrinking. The latest and greatest is no longer just a premium feature for high-paying customers. It's becoming a commodity used to acquire as many users as possible, as quickly as possible. After launching in India and Indonesia, OpenAI is now rapidly expanding this low-cost plan to 16 more countries across Asia, from Bangladesh to Vietnam. This expansion into South and Southeast Asia is incredibly ambitious. It means OpenAI has to solve some very difficult problems, like developing high-quality models for local languages and dealing with huge variations in internet infrastructure from one country to the next. They are also entering a space with fierce regional AI competitors. But this isn't just about a lower price tag. The real story is in a number that reveals the entire strategy. This brings up a huge question about the cost. Is this $4.50 plan even profitable? Almost certainly not. Research into the unit economics shows that the margins on AI queries are razor thin. It costs OpenAI almost as much in computing power to answer a prompt as it makes from a paying user. This suggests ChatGPT Go isn't a profit maker. It's a loss leader, a tool designed specifically for market capture. According to OpenAI's own data, the growth rate of ChatGPT adoption in the world's lowest income countries is already more than 4 times higher than in the highest income countries. This move is a direct response to that explosive growth. It's not a discount, it's a land grab. By offering its most powerful tools at a fraction of the cost, OpenAI is making an aggressive, calculated play to capture the fastest growing user base on the planet. And the implications here go far beyond just software. To make this work, OpenAI is actively exploring building local data centers across Asia. This helps them reduce lag and, more importantly, comply with different data privacy and sovereignty laws in countries like Vietnam or Indonesia. They are literally building a physical footprint to support this digital expansion. The company is betting that by getting millions of users in these key markets hooked on its ecosystem now, it can build an almost insurmountable lead. This strategy aims to lock out competitors in the world's emerging tech hubs before the race for AI dominance has even truly begun. We were just talking about OpenAI's aggressive expansion, but one of its core products, ChatGPT, is now making headlines for a very different and much darker reason. An image generated by it is now at the center of one of the most devastating arson cases in Los Angeles history. Investigators have arrested 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht in connection with the Pacific Palisades fire, a blaze that killed 12 people, destroyed over 6,000 homes, and caused an estimated $150 billion in damage. The key evidence, they say, was found on his digital devices. Now, the ChatGPT angle is fascinating and it's grabbing all the headlines, but you have to look closer to understand what's really going on. This is a classic example of what some are calling the CSI, ChatGPT effect. The novelty of AI can make us overstate its importance. The indictment makes it clear that traditional digital evidence, like the phone's GPS data, was absolutely central to placing the suspect at the scene. The AI chat log is powerful, but it's part of a much larger digital puzzle with old school forensics doing the heavy lifting. But what they found goes far beyond a single image. The suspect's digital trail paints a disturbing picture. Months before the fire, he allegedly asked ChatGPT to create an image of a dystopian painting, describing a scene where the rich were chilling, watching the world burn down, laughing, enjoying themselves, and dancing. Here's where the case becomes legally groundbreaking. For prosecutors, this prompt shows mens rea, that's a legal term for criminal intent, but the defense could argue it's just dark, creative exploration. Believe it or not, our legal system has no clear rules for this yet. Courts are struggling to decide if a private thought expressed to an AI is the same as a plan. This case could set the precedent for how your private AI chats are treated as evidence in the future. And the rabbit hole goes deeper. A month before the fire, another prompt to the AI allegedly included the text, "I literally burnt the Bible that I had. It felt amazing. I felt so liberated." As investigators closed in, they found Rinderknecht had also asked ChatGPT a very specific question. Are you at fault if a fire is left sick because of your cigarettes? Officials believe this was part of an attempt to create a more innocent explanation. This is that liability vacuum we've talked about. Asking an AI about fault doesn't shift responsibility, but it does create a time-stamped story. This is what sets it apart from something like a one-off Google search. A long chat history with an AI can provide forensic investigators with a narrative of someone's evolving thoughts. They can see the user trying to justify their actions. Psychologists call this techniques of neutralization. It's the mental gymnastics people do to make their deviant behavior feel acceptable. That's exactly what asking about the cigarette might be, an attempt to neutralize his guilt by creating a less sinister story. The indictment alleges Rinderknecht, a former resident of the area and an Uber driver, started the fire on New Year's Day and then moved to Florida shortly after. Authorities used his phone's GPS data to place him at the scene. Despite his claims he was elsewhere, this all leads to a huge ethical question for all of us. Many people treat these AIs as a private digital confessional, a place to explore thoughts we'd never say out loud, but there's a critical catch. Unlike a conversation with a therapist or a lawyer, your AI chats have zero legal privilege. A recent federal order forced OpenAI to preserve user chat logs, even ones people thought they deleted. In practice, that means AI companies, whether they like it or not, are becoming massive archives of evidence for law enforcement, with policies stating they can hold onto your data for at least 30 days or indefinitely if there's a legal reason. This arrest, which could lead to murder charges, highlights a chilling new reality where conversations with artificial intelligence can become a digital breadcrumb trail leading directly to a suspect's door. Until the liability vacuum and privacy norms catch up, the safest assumption is simple. Anything you tell an I might someday be read aloud in court. While AI is creating these new complex legal challenges, a fierce debate is raging in Silicon Valley over the human talent needed to build that very technology in the first place. The CEO of Nvidia, one of the most powerful companies on the planet, just dropped a bombshell. His family's American dream would have been impossible under a new policy from the Trump administration. The policy imposes a staggering $100,000 fee for each H-1B visa, the temporary visa used by tech companies to hire specialized foreign professionals. To put this in perspective, the new fee isn't just a small increase. It's more than 130 times the previous base filing fee. This kind of cost completely changes the game, especially for smaller companies. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang, who immigrated to the US at 9 years old, said it plainly, his family would not have been able to afford that fee. In his own words, the opportunity for his family and for him to be here would not have been possible. What Huang is pointing to is something some economists call the economics of serendipity. And it's not just a feeling. Research from the Brookings Institution backs this up, showing that nearly half, 43% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their children. We're talking about companies like Google, co-founded by Sergey Brin, who came from Russia, and Apple, co-founded by Steve Jobs, the son of a Syrian immigrant. These are the kinds of world-changing outcomes that a restrictive policy might prevent. This isn't a small issue. The tech sector relies heavily on this talent. Amazon was the top employer for H-1B holders last year, sponsoring over 10,000 applicants. Tech giants like Microsoft, Meta, Apple, and Google were also top employers. with over 4,000 approvals each. Nvidia itself currently sponsors 1,400 visas. However, if you zoom out, you'll see this isn't a simple case of Silicon Valley versus the government. Here's where it gets interesting. Some of the biggest names in tech are actually in favor of the fee hike. In effect, this policy creates a massive divide between the tech giants and everyone else. While a huge company can absorb a $100,000 fee, an early stage startup cannot. This creates a talent moat for big tech, preventing startups from hiring the essential international engineers and researchers they need to innovate and compete. Netflix's Reed Hastings called the fee a great solution in a post on X, saying it will mean the visa is used just for very high-value jobs. And it doesn't stop there. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman also backed the changes, stating that outlining financial incentives to attract the smartest people seems good to him. So, what does high value even mean in this context? If you define value only by the salary a company is willing to pay, you risk overlooking crucial but not always top salaried roles like postdoctoral researchers or brilliant junior engineers with huge future potential. You might get the established star, but you might lose the next one. So you have a clear divide at the absolute pinnacle of the tech world. The CEO of Nvidia says this policy would have blocked his own path to America. At the same time, the leaders behind Netflix and OpenAI are publicly supporting it, creating a high-stakes debate over the future of talent in America. This whole debate is happening in a global pressure cooker because as the US considers raising the barrier to entry, other countries are rolling out the red carpet. If the US raises the barrier, the world's top tech talent has other options. Canada's global talent stream can process applications in just 10 business days. The UK has a high-potential individual visa, and Germany is streamlining its own process. These countries are aggressively positioning themselves to attract the very innovators the US might be turning away. And as the tech world debates how to attract the brightest minds, the financial world is in a race of its own to build the new payment rails for the entire digital economy. The most unexpected news in the financial world today has to be this. One of the biggest names on Wall Street just made a major bet on the crypto world. Citi, the global banking giant, has officially invested in a stablecoin infrastructure company called BVNK. This isn't just a small side project. BVNK builds the payment rails that allow money to move globally using stablecoins, the digital currencies pegged to real money, and the scale of this market is an absolute bombshell. According to Visa, there were nearly $9 trillion worth of stablecoin transactions in the last 12 months alone. $9 trillion. The total value of all stablecoins in circulation right now is over $300 billion. But this massive scale also introduces a whole new level of risk because stablecoins are now deeply integrated into the traditional financial system. They hold huge amounts of US Treasury securities as reserves. So a run on a major stablecoin could force a massive rapid-fire sale of those government bonds, potentially destabilizing the entire market. We saw a preview of this in March 2023 when the popular stablecoin USDC temporarily lost its dollar peg after it was revealed that billions of its reserves were stuck in the collapsed Silicon Valley Bank. It shows just how fragile this can be. This is why Wall Street is jumping in. The move by Citi isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a massive coordinated shift. JP Morgan Chase already launched its own stablecoin-like token called JPMD. We're seeing Citi and JP Morgan taking two completely different paths to the same goal. It's the classic build versus buy dilemma playing out in real time. JP Morgan chose to build its own system, JPM Coin, which gives them complete control but takes a huge investment of time and money. Citi, on the other hand, is choosing to buy into the technology by investing in an expert company like BVNK. This gets them into the market faster and leverages outside expertise, but it means they have less direct control. Even Citi's own CEO, Jane Fraser, has signaled the company is considering issuing its own stablecoin. So what's causing this sudden gold rush? In a word, regulatory clarity. The new US law, the Genius Act, is effectively setting up a global competition for the future of finance. It focuses specifically on payment stablecoins, creating a clear rulebook that mandates full reserve backing. It's essentially rolling out the red carpet for dollar-backed stablecoins. When we place that alongside the European Union's new MiCA regulation, the contrast is clear. To protect the euro, the EU actually puts a cap on the daily transaction volume for non-euro stablecoins. The US is essentially sending a signal to the world: bring your crypto innovation here. The co-founder of BVNK said there has been an explosion of demand, adding that US banks are putting their weight behind this technology to make sure they are at the forefront of this technological shift in payments. This is the new race. It's not just Citi and JP Morgan. Bank of New York Mellon is exploring tokenized deposits. HSBC has already launched a tokenized service. The goal is to use blockchain technology to make transactions faster, cheaper, and run 24/7. And to appreciate the scale of this disruption, consider this. A typical international business payment using the old SWIFT system can take anywhere from 1 to 5 business days to settle, and it can cost between $30 and $50 in fees. With stablecoin rails, that same transaction can settle in seconds, not days, for a fee that is often less than $1. It's not just an improvement, it's a fundamental change in how money moves around the planet. The message from the financial establishment is crystal clear. The era of treating digital currencies as a fringe asset is over. The biggest banks in the world are no longer just watching the crypto revolution, they are now actively funding and building it.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.